Hi, I'm Selena Patton, Chief of Student Services for the Charter Institute at Erskine. Welcome to Part 5 of the Institute's Educate and Elevate series, Leading the Way, Implementing Quality Instructional Practices. Today's session will provide you with the content knowledge you will need to be able to continue building a strong special education program and being an effective special education leader for your school. As a leader in special education, you need to be able to ensure high quality instruction is being provided on the behalf of students with disabilities in your school. Today, we will focus specifically on the 22 high leverage practices that have been shown to improve student outcomes. These high leverage practices are intended to address the most critical practices that every K-12 special education teacher should master in order to provide quality instructions for students with disabilities. High leverage practices have the potential to improve instruction that ultimately results in better outcomes for students with disabilities and others who struggle to succeed in school. Teachers who learn to master these practices are better prepared to engage in the types of complex instructional practice and professional collaborations that are required for effectively educating students with disabilities. Today's coverage is intended to support you in designing professional development opportunities that introduce high leverage practices in special education and encourage conversation about their potential use. Improving teacher practice has become a major focus for several reasons, including research revealing that improving the effectiveness of teachers is the most direct approach to improving outcomes for low-achieving students. Many effective practices that can substantially improve student achievement are not routinely being used by teachers. Many students with disabilities fail to make sufficient progress in the general education classroom, which stresses the importance and dire need for specialized instruction by special education teachers. Effective instruction by special education teachers requires a deeper and more comprehensive understanding of students that facilitates the development of a highly responsive, explicit, systematic instructional and behavioral interventions that support the success of students with disabilities. Special education teachers must provide instruction that is evidence-based and highly responsive to students' complex and varied needs. Special education teachers must be flexible problem solvers who not only have the expertise in using highly effective practices, but also are proficient in monitoring the effectiveness of these practices with individual students and then making decisions regarding the changes in practice as needed. This routine analysis of practice and its effect on important student outcomes is the foundation for effective special education teachers. High leverage practices are frequently occurring educational practices that all special educators should know how to do. These practices are evidence-based and when successfully implemented can improve results for struggling learners. In partnership with the Collaboration for Effective Educator Development, Accountability and Reform, or the CEDAR Center, the Council for Exceptional Children, or the CEC, has developed a published set of high leverage practices for special educators. These high leverage practices are organized around 4 aspects of practice, covering the areas of collaboration, assessment, social, emotional, behavioral, and instruction. Let's take a look at this brief video that summarizes these high leverage practices.
Welcome to our new series on high leverage practices, also known as HLPs for students with disabilities. The purpose of this series is to introduce each HLP and provide a brief demonstration of each practice. It would be amazing if viewers could watch this series and walk away knowing everything they need to about the HLPs, but that isn't realistic, or even our purpose. Instead, this video series is one tool at your disposal when learning about these critical practices during coursework, professional development, and other independent learning. Learning about the HLPs takes commitment, hard work, and lots of practice in the classroom. This video is split into 2 parts. First, we introduce and define HLPs. Second, we provide a roadmap for the remainder of the videos in this series and highlight other available resources. Part 1. What are HLPs? In many schools, students with disabilities can comprise over 10% of the student body. This means it is likely that every teacher will have responsibility for supporting the unique needs of these students. All teachers therefore need a repertoire of effective teaching practices. The goal is to ensure all students receive meaningful access to and make appropriate progress within the general education curriculum. The individualized education plan spells out the relevant placements and supports for students with disabilities. This is where the high-leverage practices come in. The HLPs are practices that are foundational to effective teaching. These are practices we want graduates of teacher education programs and then in-service teachers to use on a regular basis. Please note the HLPs are intended to complement, not replace, intense data-driven interventions provided by special educators and other specialists to students with disabilities. HLPs must be fundamental to effective teaching, used frequently by teachers, cut across instructional content, apply to many age levels and different types of learners, and improve student outcomes. A key component of HLPs is they can be broken down into component parts so teachers can learn to implement them with fidelity. HLPs are appropriate for most students, not only those with disabilities. This means general and special education teachers, regardless of grade level or instructional setting, could use these practices to support students in addition to their existing repertoire of intense, data-driven interventions. Many HLPs are necessary for implementing evidence-based practices effectively. For example, providing high-quality feedback is a component of many HLPs. And some HLPs are evidence-based practices, such as use explicit instruction or conduct functional behavioral assessments. Part 2, Roadmap for this video series. We conclude with a look forward to what viewers can expect from this video series. There are 22 HLPs divided across 4 broad domains: collaboration, assessment, social emotional behavioral, and instruction. A brief video introducing each HLP is available on www.highleveragepractices.org and on the Cedar Center website. Each video contains a definition of the HLP, a brief review of research supporting its use, and several short exemplar videos from general and special education teachers implementing the practice. The sample videos are drawn from real teachers implementing HLPs with intensity matched to the unique learning or social needs of their students with and without IEPs. The videos help illustrate content included in the High Leverage Practice Book available from CEC and on the Cedar Center website. However, the videos are not a substitute for the HLP book or other professional learning opportunities. To accompany each video, additional resources are available. These resources include additional video clips demonstrating each HLP, prompts for reflection and discussion, and links to other relevant resources, including the National Center for Intensive Intervention website. It is our mission to help professionals learn about and implement the HLPs. Therefore, we hope you take advantage of these free resources and then go forth to succeed on behalf of children with and without disabilities. Thanks for watching, and again, welcome to our new series on high leverage practices for special education.
Now let's hear more about these practices from Laura Merrick.
For the first set of high leverage practices, collaboration. For special education teachers constantly working with a wide range of people, collaboration is more than part of the job description. Working with these various groups and collaborating with them is essential and ultimately provides many benefits for the children that we work to support. Implementing collaborative practices builds effective relationships and creates a better understanding of students' needs, which allows them to succeed. High leverage practice number 1, collaboration with general education teachers, paraprofessionals, and support staff is necessary to support students' learning towards measurable outcomes and to facilitate students' social and emotional well-being across all school environments and instructional settings. High leverage practice number 2, teachers lead and participate in a range of meetings with families, IEP teams, and also individual family service plan teams, with the purpose of identifying clear, measurable student outcomes and developing instructional and behavioral plans that support these outcomes. They develop a meeting agenda, allocate time to meet with the goals of the agenda, and lead in ways that encourage consensus through both positive verbal and nonverbal communication, encouraging sharing of multiple perspectives, demonstrating active listening, and soliciting feedback. High leverage practice number 3. Teachers collaborate with families about individual children's needs, goals, programs, and progress over time, and ensure families are informed about their rights as well as about the special education processes. Teachers advocate for resources to help students meet instructional, behavioral, social, and transition goals. In building positive relationships with students, teachers encourage students to self-advocate with the goal of fostering self-determination over time. Teachers also work with families to self-advocate and support their children's learning. To wrap up collaboration, building bridges between special and general educators results in collaboration, the sharing of expertise, and ultimately improved teaching and student outcomes. Assessment. Special education teachers need to be able to administer and analyze assessments in order to provide necessary services and develop individual education programs. Not only do assessments help special educators identify the strengths and needs of their students, but they also help parents better understand the needs of their children. High leverage practice number 4. To develop a deep understanding of a student's learning needs, special educators compile a comprehensive learning profile through the use of a variety of assessment measures and other sources that are sensitive to language and culture, to analyze and describe students' strengths and needs, and analyze the school-based learning environments to determine potential supports and barriers to students' academic progress. Teachers should collect, aggregate, and interpret data from multiple sources. This information is used to create individual profiles of students' strengths and needs. High leverage practice number 5. Teachers interpret assessment information for stakeholders and involve them in the assessment, goal development, and goal implementation process. Special educators must understand each assessment's purpose, help key stakeholders understand how culture and language influence interpretation of data generated, and use data to collaboratively develop and implement individualized education and transition plans that include goals that are standards-based, appropriate accommodations and modifications, and fair grading practices, and transition goals that are aligned with students' needs. High leverage practice number 6. Once instruction and other supports are designed and implemented, special education teachers have the skills to manage and engage in ongoing data collection using curriculum-based measures, informal classroom assessments, observations of student academic performance and behavior, self-assessment of classroom instruction, and discussions with key stakeholders. Teachers study their practice to improve student learning and enhance instructional decision-making. Effective teachers retain, reuse, and extend practices that improve student learning and adjust and discard those that do not. Now we move into social, emotional, and behavioral high leverage practices. All special education teachers want their students to feel comfortable and learn while they are in the classroom. To achieve this, a special education teacher needs to establish a consistent, organized, and respectful learning environment. If a learning environment like this is created, then it will serve as a strong platform to successfully implement all other high leverage practices. Let's review high leverage practices that are aligned to the student's social and emotional well-being. High leverage practice number 7. To build and foster positive relationships, teachers should establish age-appropriate and culturally responsive expectations, routines, and procedures within their classrooms that are positively stated and explicitly taught and practiced across the school year. When students demonstrate mastery and follow established rules and routines, teachers should provide age-appropriate, specific performance feedback in meaningful and caring ways. When establishing learning environments, teachers should build mutually respectful relationships with students and engage them in setting the classroom climate. High leverage practice number 8. The purpose of feedback is to guide student learning and behavior and increase student motivation, engagement, independence, and lead to improved student learning and behavior. Effective feedback must be strategically delivered and goal-directed. Feedback is most effective when the learner has a goal and the feedback informs the learner regarding the areas needing improvement and ways to improve performance. High leverage practice number 9. Teachers should explicitly teach appropriate interpersonal skills including communication, self-management, aligning lessons with classroom and school-wide expectations for student behavior. Prior to teaching, teachers should determine the nature of the social skill challenge. High leverage practice number 10. Creating individualized behavior plans is a central role of all special educators. Key to successful plans is conducting functional behavior assessments anytime a behavior is chronic, intense, or impedes learning. A comprehensive functional behavior assessment results in a hypothesis about the function of the student's problem behavior. Once the function is determined, a behavior intervention plan is developed. This practice was covered in depth in a previous Educate and Elevate session. Now let's watch a portion of high leverage practice number 7 video. In this video, you will see the definition and rationale for why teachers must establish a consistent, organized, and respectful learning environment.
Part 1. Definition and rationale. Establishing a consistent, organized, and respectful learning environment means the teacher is planful and deliberate in how they set up their classroom space to provide students with clear directions, procedures, and expectations to support learning and behavioral success. Establishing a clear, consistent, and positive learning environment serves as a foundational element for many other HLPs. It increases the likelihood of student academic and social behavior success. It increases educator opportunities to engage in effective instructional practices, and it fosters caring and respectful interactions between educators and students. Special and general educators cannot make students learn or behave. They can, however, proactively create environments to increase the likelihood they do both. A hallmark of classrooms that are consistent, organized, and respectful is the teacher builds strong and mutually respectful relationships with students. Ways to do this include engaging students in setting classroom rules and routines, showing students respect at all times, and valuing ethnic, cultural, contextual, and linguistic diversity. Another hallmark is teachers set clear and consistent rules, routines, and procedures that keep students engaged and on track across the school day. However, not all students implicitly understand school rules. Therefore, effective teachers take deliberate time to explicitly teach students all school and class expectations and procedures using examples, non-examples, and modeling, and they provide opportunities to practice, including feedback on their performance. Effective teachers employ a continuum of strategies to recognize appropriate behavior. A key is to provide behavior-specific feedback to students that is age and context appropriate. Effective teachers also actively engage students by delivering high rates of opportunities to respond, or OTRs. OTRs are teacher behaviors that solicit a response from a student. These include individual and choral responding, as well as gestures and response cards. OTRs help teachers optimize time for instruction. When students misbehave, Effective teachers do not immediately turn to punishment to try and eliminate the unwanted behavior. Instead, they treat behavioral issues as learning errors, which are remediated by reteaching, not punishment or other criticism. In summary for Part 1, teachers who are deliberate in setting up an environment where students have clear and ongoing information about what is expected and how well they are meeting expectations often achieve tremendous success in terms of student academic and behavioral performance. It's also key for teachers to go out of their way to ensure all students are welcome in their classroom. This can be accomplished by setting out to understand students' unique cultural backgrounds and finding ways to honor and celebrate differences in the classroom. A teacher who demonstrates respect towards all students at all times is in position to expect her students will do the same. When paired with clear expectations and an organized learning environment, a positive, respectful teacher is well positioned to help all students succeed.
Now let's hear from Kathy Griffin about the last high leverage practices, instruction.
Hi, now we're going to talk about specialized instruction and the effective special education teacher. Teaching students with disabilities is a strategic, flexible, and repetitive process. Effective special education teachers use content knowledge, evidence-based practices, and data on student learning to design, deliver, and evaluate the effectiveness of their instruction. Effective special education teachers are well versed in the general education curricula and other relevant curricula and use appropriate standards, learning progressions, and evidence-based practices in conjunction with specific IEP goals to prioritize long and short-term learning goals to plan their instruction. Effective special educators deliver instruction that is designed to maximize academic learning time, actively engage learners in meaningful activities, and emphasize proactive and positive approaches across tiers of instructional intensity. Effective special education teachers also base their instruction and support with students with disabilities on the best available evidence combined with their professional judgment and knowledge of individual student needs. Effective special education teachers value diverse perspectives and incorporate knowledge about students' backgrounds, culture, and language in their instructional decisions. Effective special education teachers use teacher-led, peer-assisted, student-regulated, and technology-assisted practices fluently and know when and where to apply them. And finally, effective special educators have the ability to analyze instruction in order to improve student learning and their professional practice. So now we will look at the high leverage practices for specialized instruction. A special education teacher's instruction should focus on learning goals, being explicit and flexible, and using various learning tools such as technology. When instruction is well designed, strategic, and adaptable, special education teachers have the skills to improve student learning. High leverage practice 11. Teachers prioritize what is most important for students to learn by providing meaningful access to and success in the general education and other contextually relevant curricula. Teachers use grade level standards, assessment data, and learning progressions, students' prior knowledge, and IEP goals and benchmarks to make decisions about what is most crucial to emphasize and develop long and short-term goals accordingly. They understand essential curriculum components, identify essential prerequisites and foundations, and assess student performance in relation to these components. In high leverage practice 12, teachers help students to develop important concepts and skills that provide the foundation for more complex learning. Teachers sequence lessons that build on each other and make connections explicit in both planning and delivery. They activate students' prior knowledge and show how each lesson fits with the previous ones. Planning involves careful consideration of learning goals, what is involved in reaching the goals, and allocating time accordingly. Ongoing changes occur throughout the sequence based on student performance. In High Leverage Practice 13, teachers assess individual student needs and adapt the curriculum materials and tasks so that students can meet the instructional goals. Teacher selects materials and tasks based on the teacher's needs and make modifications by highlighting relevant information, changing the task directions, and decreasing amounts of material. Teachers make strategic decisions on content coverage, meaningfulness of tasks to meet stated goals, and criteria for student success. In High Leverage Practice 14, teachers explicitly teach cognitive and metacognitive processing strategies to support memory, attention, and self-regulation of learning. Learning involves not only understanding content, but also using cognitive processes to solve problems, regulate attention, organize thoughts and materials, and monitor one's own thinking. Self-regulation and metacognitive strategy instruction is integrated into lessons on academic content through modeling and explicit instruction. Students learn to monitor and evaluate their performance in relation to explicit goals and make necessary adjustments to improve learning. Scaffolded supports provide temporary assistance to students so they can successfully complete tasks that they cannot yet do independently and with a high rate of success. Teachers select powerful visual, verbal, and written supports, carefully calibrate them to students' performance and understanding in relation to learning tasks, use them flexibility, evaluate their effectiveness, and gradually remove them once they no longer are needed. Some supports are planned prior to lessons and some are provided responsively during the instruction. In High Leverage Practice 16, teachers make content, skills, and concepts explicit by showing and telling students what to do or think while solving problems, enacting strategies, completing tasks, and classifying concepts. Teachers use explicit instruction when students are learning new material and complex concepts and skills. They strategically choose examples and non-examples and language to facilitate student understanding, anticipate common misconceptions, highlight essential content, and remove distracting information. They model and scaffold steps or processes needed to understand content and concepts, apply skills, and complete tasks successfully and independently. In High Leverage Practice 17, teachers assign students to homogeneous and heterogeneous groups based on explicit learning goals, monitor peer interactions, and provide positive and corrective feedback to support productive learning. Teachers use small learning groups to accommodate learning differences, promote in-depth academic-related interactions, and teach students to work collaboratively. They choose tasks that require collaboration, issue directives that promote productive and autonomous group interactions, and embed strategies that maximize learning opportunities and equalize participation. Teachers promote simultaneous interactions, use procedures to hold students accountable for collective and individual learning, and monitor and sustain group performance through proximity and positive feedback. In 18, teachers use a variety of instructional strategies that result in active student responding. Active student engagement is critical to academic success. Teachers must initially build positive student-teacher relationships to foster engagement and motivate reluctant learners. They promote engagement by connecting learning to students' lives. Active student engagement is critical to academic success. Teachers must initially build positive student-teacher relationships to foster engagement and motivate reluctant learners. They promote engagement by connecting learning to students' lives, for example, getting to know students' academic and cultural backgrounds, and using a variety of teacher-led, such as choral response or response cards, peer-assisted, cooperative learning, peer tutoring, self-management, and technology-supported strategies shown empirically to increase student engagement. They monitor student engagement and provide positive and constructive feedback to sustain performance. In High Leverage Practice 19, teachers select and implement assistive and instructional technologies to support the needs of students with disabilities. They select and use augmentative and alternative communication devices and assistive and instructional technology products to promote student learning and independence. They evaluate new technology options given student needs, make informed instructional decisions grounded in evidence, professional wisdom, and students' IEP goals, and advocate for administrative support and technology implementation. Teachers use UDL framework to select, design, and implement and evaluate important student outcomes. In High Leverage Practice 20, teachers are matching the intensity of instruction to the intensity of students' learning and behavioral challenges. Intensive instruction involves working with students with similar needs on a small number of high-priority, clearly defined skills or concepts critical to academic success. Teachers group students based on common learning needs, clearly define learning goals, and use systematic, explicit, and well-paced instruction. They frequently monitor students' progress and adjust their instruction accordingly. Within intensive instruction, students have many opportunities to respond and receive immediate corrective feedback with teachers and peers to practice what they are learning. High Leverage Practice 21 teaches us to use specific techniques to teach students to generalize and maintain newly acquired knowledge and skills. Using numerous examples in designing and delivering instruction requires students to apply what they have learned in other settings. Educators promote maintenance by systematically using schedules of reinforcement, providing frequent material reviews, and teaching skills that are reinforced by the natural environment beyond the classroom. Students learn to use new knowledge and skills in places and situations other than the original learning environment and maintain their use in the absence of ongoing instruction. And finally, in High Leverage Practice 22, the purpose of feedback is to guide student learning and behavior to increase students' motivation, engagement, and independence, leading to improved student learning and behavior. Effective feedback must be strategically delivered and goal-directed. Feedback is most effective when the learner has a goal and the feedback informs the learner regarding areas needed improvement and ways to improve that performance. Feedback may be verbal, nonverbal, or written, but should be very timely, genuine, meaningful, and age-appropriate, and at the rate commensurate with task and phase of learning. Teachers should provide ongoing feedback until learners reach their established learning goals. Now let's pause to watch a video for High Leverage Practice 18, using strategies to promote student engagement in the classroom.
Part 1. Definition and Rationale. The simplest way to think about student engagement is to picture a teacher digging deep into their bag of tricks to keep students actively engaged in the learning process. This notion of student engagement is important, and the focus of this video within our series on HLPs for special education. But experts view student engagement as a multidimensional construct. Students can demonstrate behavioral engagement, which involves such behaviors as raising their hand, watching the teacher, and answering questions. Students are also impacted by affective engagement. Affective engagement involves positive feelings about the learning process, such as motivation to learn, and is reflected in students taking responsibility for their own learning. Engagement is a relevant construct for all teachers and students. Students who report higher engagement within school are less likely to drop out or get in other trouble in and out of school. Engaged students are more successful on immediate school-related tasks, but also make healthier life choices, have stronger social-emotional well-being, and go on to more rewarding and lucrative careers. This is true regardless of socioeconomic status or other student factors. In this video, we focus on the role of the general and special education teacher in supporting engagement of students with disabilities within academic lessons and other school settings. Teachers can generate active student engagement for students with disabilities by using a range of motivational strategies, which help them make the most of learning opportunities during class and beyond. A hallmark of a teacher who generates actively engaged students is they build and maintain positive relationships with students. This is achieved by proactively taking an interest in students' lives and prioritizing positive relationships in all facets of the school day. We elaborate in part 2 of this video. Another hallmark is effective teachers provide students with numerous scaffolds to actively participate during lessons and then offer meaningful feedback on their performance. In sum, for part 1, active student engagement in learning is critical to academic and behavioral success. Although engagement is a bit of a controversial construct, given its many possible definitions and permutations, there is broad agreement that teachers play a critical role in helping students remain engaged within lessons and school writ large, which is essential for students with disabilities.
High-leverage practices have the potential to improve instruction that ultimately results in better outcomes for students with disabilities and others who struggle to succeed in school. Teachers who learn and master these practices are better prepared to engage in the types of complex instructional practice and professional collaborations that are required for effectively educating students with disabilities. Now that we have explored the high-leverage practices that effective teachers use to improve student outcomes, let's review what the courts have said regarding specialized instruction and FAPE. The primary requirement of IDEA and the crucial obligation of special educators is to provide a special education that confers a free, appropriate public education. Two landmark court cases have shaped special education today, Rowley and Andrew F. In Board of Education versus Rowley, the Supreme Court ruled that in order to provide a free, appropriate public education under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act for students with disabilities, school districts must provide an educational benefit. 35 years later, in Andrew F. versus Douglas County School District, the court revisited Rowley and stated that in order to provide a FAPE, schools must provide an educational program that is reasonably calculated to enable a child to make progress appropriate in light of the child's circumstances. Even though Andrew F. articulated a new FAPE standard, the court emphasized that it did not want to overrule Rowley. From these court cases developed a test. In the development of an IEP, has the school complied with the procedures set forth in the IDEA? And is the IEP developed through the IDEA's procedures reasonably calculated to enable the child to make progress that is appropriate in light of his or her circumstances? On March 22, 2017, the Supreme Court rejected the merely more than de minimis standard and determined that in order for schools to meet its substantive obligation under IDEA, a school must offer an IEP reasonably calculated to enable a child to make progress appropriate in light of the child's circumstances. Which leads us to 6 recommendations for special education coordinators and IEP teams to ensure that they are complying with the IDEA. Our first recommendation for IEP teams to avoid procedural violations in the development of the IEP that could in and of themselves constitute a denial of FAPE. Try to avoid serious procedural errors such as not having the proper IEP team members present, failing to ensure a continuum of placement, failing to include important components in an IEP, or predetermining services or placement, placing a student prior to determining programming, and also failing to implement a material part of the IEP. Another recommendation is to ensure meaningful parent involvement in IEP meetings and that their opinions are considered in establishing their child's educational or behavioral goals. In the Andrew decision, parent participation was paramount. An IEP must be drafted in compliance with a detailed set of procedures that emphasize collaboration among parents and educators and require careful consideration of the child's individual circumstances. This fact-intensive exercise of this IEP development will be informed not only by the expertise of school officials, but also by the input of the child's parents. The IEP process with opportunity to fully air their opinion on the requisite degree of progress is important. The third recommendation, when developing the contents of the student's IEP and subsequently reviewing and revising it, be sure that the present levels of performance and annual goals are based upon evaluations and other relevant data that are current, meaning within the last year. Make sure that your PLAF statements are fully developed. Courts have found IEPs invalid based solely on inadequate PLAF statements. A focus on the child's particular needs is the core of IDEA. The instruction must be specially designed to meet that child's unique needs. IEPs must be carefully crafted and ensure that they meet all requirements. Ensure that annual IEP goals are challenging, appropriately ambitious, and measurable. Continuously monitor and measure a child's progress on their annual goals. And maintain specific data to demonstrate that progress has been made. When progress report and other data do not reflect that an annual goal will be met, IEP teams must reconvene to determine why, make needed instructional changes, and continue to collect data.
Thank you for spending some time with us as we reviewed the high leverage practices that effective special education teachers use to improve student outcomes, and the two major court cases that have shaped special education instruction today. Be sure to continue studying the 22 high leverage practices for improving special education instruction, as well as following the 6 recommendations outlined today to ensure that your IEPs are developed that will enable students to make progress that is appropriate in light of his or her circumstances. SPED coordinators play a major role in charter schools. Not only are they often charged with the day-to-day operations of ensuring students with disabilities are receiving specialized instruction, they must also monitor student data to ensure individual student growth as well as your charter school growth overall. Charter schools are open because they promise to do something different, something that will impact student instruction and improve the outcomes of students that attend the school. Successful SPED coordinators learn to analyze all data points to make sure individual students are making good progress and to ensure students with disabilities are receiving good, quality instruction. Thank you for attending all 5 Educate and Elevate sessions. We hope you've learned some of the skills that are needed to be a successful special education coordinator in charter schools. With these skills, we hope you are able to move the needle for your students.